Alright, let's talk about the biggest part of my collection, my NES games. Now, since I have a little over 120 NES games, it's not very practical of me to go over every single one. So instead, I'm just going to go over a few of my favorites, some of the more shittier ones, and some of the more rare and expensive ones. First off, Contra. By far one of the best games on the system, better than the arcade version, and pretty damn hard. I can remember for years as a kid trying to beat it without the Konami code, and it's taken me a long time, but I finally got to the point where I can. But I think that has most to do with the fact of, 20 years of controller frustration. This is definitely a game that every collector needs to start off with. Batman, the video game. Even though it's based off the 1989 Tim Burton film, other than the cutscenes and the end fight with the Joker, there's really not much connection to the actual movie. But I think that's actually a good thing in this case, because as we all know, movie games usually suck. But what we have here is a very solid action platformer with a Ninja Gaiden style wall jump, which is something you really got to get used to because it's a little tricky at first. The difficulty is hard but pretty fair, except for when you get to the Joker, which I'm probably never going to get to. Nightshade, one of the most criminally underrated and forgotten NES titles. It's sort of hard to describe because there's so many gameplay elements to it. There's point and click, side-scrolling adventure, and fighter. It has a memorable story that doesn't take itself too seriously. In fact, it's got that 60s Batman cheesy quality to it. The only problem is that it hasn't aged very well. The point-and-click UI is pretty archaic and hard to get used to, but once you do, it's a blast. Guerrilla Warfare by SNK. I have a hard time liking this now, ever since I found out what the actual story was. Apparently in Japan, you're playing as Che Guevara and Fidel Castro in the Cuban Revolution. Why? Why would you do that? I'm glad that they changed it for the US market, but that's just weird. Why would you make a game about that? But it's still a solid Rambo-style kind of game. Okay, let's talk about some really crappy games. Probably the worst in my collection, Total Recall. There are no words to describe the shittiness of this game. I mean, the graphics are so unappealing, the hit detection is awful, the overall gameplay is just terrible. A lot of it you're just fighting midgets in dark alleyways. Did they even see the movie at all? I mean, I don't even need to say anything else, just look at the footage. Let me start off by saying I am a total Metal Gear fanboy. But this is a horrible game. It was originally released on the MSX, a computer in Japan, and because of the popularity there, they decided to port it over here. But apparently they thought that us Americans were too stupid to understand the stealth elements and decided to beef it up a little bit more, if you will. For instance, they completely redid the beginning. The beginning does not start in a jungle. It starts underwater. You're infiltrating the base through an underwater passage. And the scene where you're jumping from an airplane and there's like 3 other people there? Why did they add 3 other people there? They never come in the game. 3 other people parachute with you and then that's it. Why? Let's get into some of the unlicensed games, as they are some of the shittiest games ever made. First, we got Dudes with Attitude. It's basically just a really stupid puzzle game. You're a solid colored circle, and you must bounce yourself onto other solid colored objects in order to make them disappear. It's as dumb as it sounds. Let's get a little blasphemous with Bible Adventures. Then you have Wisdom Tree, who made Bible games. I actually have 2 versions of Bible Adventures here, a black version and the blue version. From what I understand, the blue version is more rare. Gameplay-wise, they pretty much just rip off first-party Nintendo games. Bible Adventures especially, most of the gameplay revolves around Mario 2 style platforming. Now, Spiritual Warfare especially is basically a poor man's Zelda. Saying that is being extremely generous. I mean, it's really weird when you think about it. You're throwing fruit at people, into which they all of a sudden start praying and die, I guess, because they disappear. And sometimes a dove will fly out, other times a demon will fly out. There's trash cans everywhere. Oh, I don't even... But let's dig down to the bottom of the shit barrel. Sachin. There's actually some debate as to whether or not Sachin games count as NES games, as there's no actual proof that they were ever sold in America. And the thing is, Sachin games really are the worst of the worst. They are some of the most terribly programmed, terribly implemented games ever made. Surprisingly though, this one, Pyramid 2, is actually pretty damn good. Mainly because it rips off Tetris. But instead of shapes made of 4 colored blocks like a T or a box, they're actually pyramid shaped. So it's pretty damn hard. But here's a game that I am shocked that I own. Little Samson. This is in fact in the top 5 rarest NES games. There are a few on eBay right now that are selling between $200 and $300, and I've seen it go for $500 for just the cartridge. I bought mine for $5. For a game that's so rare and expensive, it's actually pretty damn good. The graphics are amazing and the gameplay is stellar. But given the fact that it was made by Takadu, that's not too surprising, as Takadu was made by former members of Capcom who make Mega Man. Well, that's just a quick little look at some of my NES games. If there's any one in particular you want me to go over, I'd be more than happy to. Provided, of course, I actually have the game. Well, thanks for watching.